starting off with a breathing practice to explore awareness and power. So settling into a posture where you can breathe easily, where you feel comfortable. If you've had a busy day, if you've been on your feet a lot, I recommend lying down, perhaps even with your feet elevated, putting your feet up on the sofa or a chair, your lower legs resting on something like that, with your knees bent, so that your feet can recover a bit. If you have a job where you stand a lot, that's a really nice thing to do. And also on a hot day, if our feet feel hot or our ankles might be a bit swollen, it's a hot day as this is being recorded. That can feel very refreshing. Literally put your feet up. It also relaxes your back if you've got your knees bent, either with your feet elevated on a chair or some other piece of furniture, or just having your knees bent and the soles of your feet flat on the ground. That also releases your lower back, so we call that semi-supine. And if you're happy to sit in a meditation type posture or on a chair, that's also great. So awareness of the breath and utilizing the power of how we breathe to help us relax and restore our energies. It might be helpful to place your hands on your lower belly. If you're lying down, doing that in such a way that your elbows are resting on the floor so that your shoulders can relax. If you're sitting down, your elbows relaxed by your side, maybe your hands overlapping. Whatever works for you to be comfortable. I sometimes put a pillow or a cushion on my lap so that my hands can kind of relax onto that and my elbows can relax onto that. I'm just showing that on the screen. So towards the end of the day, when this class is being recorded at sort of what might be the end of a day working from home, late afternoon, early evening, it's nice to stop and pause. And then we can relax our belly as much as we can, relaxing our belly on the in-breath, when it would naturally kind of balloon forwards. And on the out-breath, it naturally pulls back a bit, so the abdominal muscles engage on the exhale, and they let go on the inhale. And they do this to assist the lungs in their breathing process, assisting the diaphragm, which is really doing the breathing. The lungs themselves have no muscle tissue. It's the diaphragm that's the main breathing muscle, and then all the muscles around the torso, or many of the muscles around the torso, assist. So when we relax our belly on the in-breath, we're making it easier for the lungs to expand downwards. And then those muscles naturally slightly contract to help facilitate the exhalation, the emptying of the lungs. And something very similar is going on in the pelvic floor muscles. You might be able to feel that too in the in-breath. a relaxation of the pelvic floor. On the out breath, a very slight contraction. And it's more subtle than the belly because those muscles are very deep in the bony structure of the pelvis. Lots of organs resting on them. Your lower bowels. For women, the womb, reproductive organs. There's kind of quite a lot of density there, and might be hard to really feel what's going on in your pelvic floor during just normal breathing. Bladders there. Muscles that organize our continence. We can add a little bit of deliberate strength work to this, and this is quite an internal process. So on the exhalation, towards the end of the exhale, we can make sure we breathe out very fully, so making a bit of an extra effort to empty out the lungs. And on the in-breath, consciously and gradually releasing the contraction in the tummy, and maybe you're also aware of the pelvic floor, so that the belly can fully kind of expand again to make space for the lower parts of the lungs. And if you can be aware of your pelvic floor, you can also contract your pelvic floor at the end of the exhale. And you're really breathing out fully, contracting your pelvic floor, which is the same muscles you would contract if you really needed a wee, but you weren't at the toilet yet, so you'd be holding it in. Same with needing a poo and holding it in. All those muscles around the genitals and the anus are part of the pelvic floor. So you can contract those. That might help you to kind of locate them. And then on the in-breath, very gently, gradually releasing them. On the out-breath, towards the end of the exhale, consciously contracting. And at the end of the exhale, we can hold a little pause. It only needs to be a second or half a second, a bit hard to measure, but like a comma in a sentence. And then gradually relax. So it's the gradual relaxation that helps us to really control and strengthen the muscles. And then it's the contraction where we can feel the strength, and that's the same for all muscle groups. So this gradual relaxing of muscles is really a really important part of relaxation, but also in fact of strengthening. And then we can let that relax. So it might feel kind of tiring if you don't do these exercises very often, or maybe you haven't done them before. It can feel a little tiring because you've probably gone through a bigger range of contraction and release than you normally consciously do. And if you've been doing yoga a while and you know some of the Sanskrit terminology, that pelvic floor contraction is called the Mula Bandha, or the root lock. And the benefits are having more control over your bowel and bladder functions, so less likely to have incontinence, and also to prevent prolapse. particularly hemorrhoids. So really useful, especially as we get older, or if we're women who've had babies. So that has hopefully helped us to intensify our breathing a little, which can feel quite restorative. Deeper breathing combined with some relaxation and some strengthening. So bringing awareness to both relaxing and engaging strength, which are both part of resilience, being able to go fully into action, a powerful action, and also being able to rest, to let go, to have a full range of letting go and picking up the task again. And if you've been sitting, now inviting you to come to a lying down position on the floor with your knees bent. And you can maybe put something under your head if that's helpful, a yoga block or a cushion. And then bringing your arms by your side. I'm going to demonstrate this as well. So if it's not so clear from what I'm saying, you can look over to the screen. I'm going to get myself into position. And you can keep your awareness with your breathing. So lying down in semi-supine, if you weren't already, arms by your side, you might kind of wriggle or shuffle your shoulders around a little bit. And then again with the breath, we're going to breathe in, taking our arms up towards the floor behind us. Breathing out, bringing our arms back down. So thinking more about the breath in the upper part of the torso with these. So when we breathe in and lift our arms, we tend to breathe a bit more into the middle of the chest, the middle of the lungs, maybe also a little bit upper chest. And your hands might not reach the floor like mine do. That's not the objective particularly. Just to raise your arms to wherever they can comfortably go. And then exhaling them back down by your side. Again, you can breathe out fully before you let the in-breath come back in. If it's comfortable, you can breathe a little more deeply in and a little more fully out for the next few movements and breaths. This is also really helpful if you've got any lung conditions, COVID or recovering from COVID, asthma, COPD, and I'm just grabbing a bolster which I'll show you something with in a moment. So we're basically exercising our lungs as well as exercising our shoulders and arms and our back muscles with this. And then next time you bring your arms up, see if you can rest them behind you. And I've put mine on a bolster. You could prop any kind of rolled up blanket or a couple of pillows, cushions, Your hands can be together so it doesn't have to be as wide as a bolster. If you don't have anything to hand, you could interlace your fingers and have your hands behind your head. That's quite comfortable for a lot of people. Or you could have your arms out to the side, maybe the hands slightly above shoulder level. So we're just looking to open up the chest a little bit in terms of just stretching the muscles of the chest, elevating the ribs a little whilst being able to relax the weight of our arms down. So see what works for you. So with our arms raised and resting behind us like this, when we take some deeper breaths, again, we probably find there's more activity in the lower ribs and the upper ribs as well. And then bringing our arms back down by our side. Move my holster. You can leave yours there. You might need it again in a moment. And then we'll take our arms by our side. And we'll do a little sequence for our legs and also a bit of a core strengthener again. So inviting you to bring your knees in towards your chest, keeping your arms by your side. So at this point, my knees are really bent. And then we're going to exhale and straighten the legs up towards the ceiling. Inhale, bending them again. So it's a fairly simple double leg stretch, hamstring stretch. If you find it a little challenging, it's probably because your hamstrings are a bit tight. So feel free to put your hands around the backs of your thighs. Feel free to only straighten to the point where you feel the stretch coming in. That's all you need. Dynamic leg stretch. So it might be not completely straight, but you might have a sort of angle still between your lower legs and your thighs. And then we can combine the previous movement with this one. So starting with our arms by our side and our knees in towards our chest. On the out breath, straightening the legs. On the in breath, taking our arms behind us, maybe to the bolster. Got it there. And then exhaling, coming back to arms by your side, knees bent, and then resting during the inhalation. And then exhaling, straightening the legs. Inhaling, raising the arms. Exhaling, bringing everything back to the starting position. Inhaling, having a little rest. Exhaling, straightening legs. Inhaling, raising arms. Exhaling, coming back to the starting position. Inhaling, rest. So continue like this. And the inhalation in the rest, when your knees are in towards you, you're sort of pressing probably a little bit on your belly with your thighs. So you might feel your breath goes a little bit more into your side ribs because you're also confined at the back of your body. So you're lying on your back. So again, your breath will find a different kind of area to go into a bit more. Probably your upper chest and your side ribs. Our breath is very powerful. It just finds somewhere to go. we're confining it in some way, it will find another place to go. And then when you next come back to the starting position with your knees bent and your feet off the floor, we're going to slowly, keeping our knees bent, lower our feet back to the ground whilst contracting our core. So again, keeping our lower back sort of flat and close to the floor and contracting our tummy muscles. Your pelvic floor will naturally contract too. So our body knows what to do. We're not always aware of that. But when we start to do more of this work, bringing attention to these deep core muscles, we realize, oh, actually, I'm quite strong there. I can do these things. My core is working in the background. And when we bring more awareness to it, like when we do these breathing practices, when we deliberately contract our core muscles, we can strengthen them even more. So we're now in the starting position for bridge. And so you might want to bring your feet a bit closer in towards your pelvis, the feet staying hip distance apart. And you can have your arms by your side with the palms down. And then first we'll do a few simple bridges, the arms staying by our side. And you can keep the bridge quite low or a bit higher. So coming up into bridge, coming back down. And you can still work a little bit with your core here. So you can start on the exhale, curling up your tailbone first, and then inhaling on the way up. Exhaling back down, and then the last bit of rolling down, the last bit of your out breath. Breathing in the rest. And exhaling, flattening your lower back, curling up your tailbone. Feel your core muscles contract. Going up on the inhalation and exhaling back down. So bringing awareness to your core and your breath. Inhaling in the rest, exhaling, flattening and curling up. Inhaling as you go up and exhaling back down. Excuse me. And then if you wish, you can make it slightly more challenging by rolling up in the same way. And then as you breathe in, raising your arms up and then leaving your arms behind as you roll down. And as you rest and breathe in, bring your arms back down by your side. And then exhale, rolling back up. Inhaling, staying up and bringing your arms up. Exhaling, rolling your spine down, leaving your arms behind. Inhaling, resting and bringing your arms back down. Finding your own pace, so rolling up on the exhale. Inhale, raising arms. Exhale, rolling down. Inhale, lowering arms, bit of a rest. Always rest longer. Always do less repetitions too, so being aware of how your body is doing, how you're feeling. If you've already had a really full-on day with lots of physical effort and just want to rest for a few breaths now, you can do a couple more repetitions. If your legs and your back feel tired at any point, you can hug your knees in towards you, and maybe straightening your legs again a couple of times to stretch your hamstrings. So the bridge is very strengthening for the muscles at the backs of the thighs, the glutes, the buttock muscles, and the lower back. So also part of core strength. It's like the back line of core strength. And then taking a rest if you haven't already with some of these leg extensions. Bringing some relaxation into your lower back as well with these. Good. And then keeping your knees in towards your chest, your feet off the ground, arms by your side. Going to do another core strengthener. So with this one, we're going to start quite gently. So we're going to exhale and extend one leg away from us, above the floor and quite far above the floor. So maybe your foot is about 2 feet or so off the floor, or even higher, but just enough so that you feel that you need to use your tummy muscles to stabilize your body and to keep your lower back sort of fairly flat and close to the floor. Going from side to side. If you're stronger than me, you might have your leg lower, like you might have your heel quite close to the ground. You can experiment. So if it feels really easy, you can have your heel hovering just above the ground. That's a bit strong for me at the moment, so I'm going a bit higher. If you've got any sort of twinges in your back, then you might keep your angle much higher. It's absolutely fine. Anything you do here, whichever range you're working in, you still be training your core. I'm doing like quite a gentle one here. If you're looking at the screen now, my legs are almost just going upright, but I can feel my core engage. So exhaling on the leg extending away from you, inhaling, coming back. Keeping your lower back fairly close to the floor, so the natural arch is there. We're keeping basically the pelvis very still. We're not letting the pelvis roll towards the tailbone. That's a good way to kind of gauge whether you're doing it right without putting pressure on your back. So your pelvis staying very stable. It's not being pulled that way over towards your legs by the weight of your legs. If you know which side you started on, finish on the other side. And then bringing your knees in towards you again. You might like to hug your knees and take a little rock from side to side. Nice relaxing movement. Massaging your lower back. And we can lower our feet to the floor. Again, a little core activity with that. And if it's comfortable, stretching both legs out along the floor. Just going to have an interim rest in relaxation pose. If this isn't comfortable for your back, it might be okay with one knee bent, giving the other hip a chance to release. And then I'd like you to again focus on fully relaxing your belly, maybe placing one or both hands on your belly as you breathe in. to help your tummy muscles to relax again. And they'll do their minor contraction on the exhale, but gravity is helping here, so still pretty restful for the belly. And if you've only got one leg extended, then swap over so the other leg gets a chance to release at the hip. And a few more of these breaths where we encourage our belly to completely soften on the inhale. Bend that knee, then or both knees, if you had both knees bent. And then we'll come to all fours, come a bit closer to the screen. Probably see me a bit better then. And I'm going to do a little side bend in the cat. So I'm basically contracting the muscles between my shoulder and my hip, mainly between the lower ribs and the hip, so the muscles at the side of my waist. So hopefully you can see reasonably well that my right shoulder and my right hip probably looks like my left side on the screen, but it's my right side, are going towards each other. So they're both going to the right side. My head is going to the right and my hips are going to the right. I'm contracting that side of my ribs. And then when I go to the other side, everything is on my left side. It's trying to get together. My left shoulder is trying to get together with my left hip. And now my right side is stretching. So these muscles are also part of breathing and part of daily life movements and part of our core. If you're finding them difficult to locate, many of you will have done this with me before, so hopefully you've find them in your neurological map of your muscles. If it's a bit tricky, you can do some crawling around the room. So in a crawling motion, we naturally find them. We find our side bending muscles when we crawl. So babies use them quite a lot. And then when we sort of get older and move differently, sometimes we lose them in the map of our muscles. Excellent. Good. And then we can take a rest in child's pose. So feel free again to use some supports. You might have some cushions that you can hug, or a bolster, or a yoga block, or a pile of books if you don't own a yoga block to put under your head if you find that helpful. Put something at the back of your knees if it's your knees that struggle with this pose. something, a rolled up blanket or something like that under your shins. Demonstrate that as well for a moment. Small cushion would do it as well. That stops you from getting cramp so easily. It can be something fairly thin, just place just towards the bottom of your shins near your ankles. So getting comfortable in child's pose so you can explore your breath there. A few rounds of breathing. It's helpful to do. When we breathe deeply in pose of the child, because the front of the body is quite confined, you can maximize breathing into the back of the lungs, which extend quite far down, right down into the small of your back, and you might feel it. You might even feel again something changing in your pelvic floor as well as you inhale and exhale. You might even be able to feel some movement all the way up and down your spine, perhaps even in your head as you breathe in and out, especially if you breathe out fully. Allow your in-breath to be slightly deeper, which you can try for the next few breaths. And then coming up to sitting. Oh, that's my mindfulness bell going off. Forgot to turn it off. It goes off once an hour to remind me to take 3 mindful breaths if I'm being busy. Visit it as well. So the next bit is kind of a combination of a yoga breathing thing, which some of you might have done, and something I've done in Feldenkrais breathing. So Feldenkrais, kind of other therapeutic movement form, which I bring into the classes quite a bit. And it's a way of becoming very aware of all the muscles that we use for breathing around the chest. I'm putting my hands there because I'm thinking about it. Around the belly as well, and the diaphragm itself, which is this internal muscle which sits between your rib cage and your abdomen. It's like the ceiling, you could say it's the ceiling of the abdomen, and the lungs are above, contents of your belly are below. And then the pelvic floor, you could say, is the floor, the ground floor of the torso. So this next little exercise can help to make us more aware of those muscles, the relationships between the diaphragm and the muscles of the ribs, the belly, and also some of the muscles on your back. So you can do this, you could do this lying down, but it might be easier to see doing it sitting up. And you can sit comfortably upright. If you need to sit on the chair or the sofa, that's fine. If you are sitting on a piece of furniture, sit quite far forward so you're not slumping back. So you can sit on the front edge with an upright torso. And we're basically going to experiment with what it's like to breathe when we can't breathe. That sounds a bit weird, but when we hold our breath. So we're going to breathe out fully. You don't have to do it straight away. You can watch first. We're going to breathe out fully. And then without actually taking air in, do a kind of fake in-breath. So it looks a bit like this. Breathing out fully. And then doing this. And then relax and take an in-breath. So it's towards what some of you might know as Uddiyana Bandha, or the flying lock, if you've heard those terms. If you haven't, don't worry, but it might be useful to know if that's what you've learned. So we basically breathe out fully, and then we take as if we're taking an in-breath, but we're not letting any air in. Just do that once or twice and then relax and breathe. So you can try it out on an in-breath. Same thing, breathing in fully. And then holding the breath in. And then trying to breathe without letting air in. And then relaxing and breathing out. And breathing normally. And it might actually feel a little peculiar, like you're kind of working out your diaphragm a little bit here. Giving it something to do it doesn't normally do. Maybe it does, does something similar when we have the hiccups or sneeze. There's similar movements. And the hiccups can feel quite exhausting, I think. So you can try it a couple more times, maybe holding the breath out. And then relaxing. Letting your belly relax again. And if it feels okay, doing it whilst holding the breath in. And then relaxing. And sometimes this is also quite nice for releasing tension around the upper chest and the shoulders, and here the neck, the throat. Because there's quite a lot moving there. You might have been able to sense potentially quite a lot moving there, where we sort of hold ourselves maybe a bit rigid, maybe, on the computer like this. So it kind of frees up a lot of areas. Good. So then we've kind of brought a bit of unusual movement and exercise to our breathing muscles. We can have a play with an inversion, and I'll give you a couple of really simple options. So downward facing dog is the strongest option, so we're not doing a headstand or anything, in case you're worried. Or a kind of kneeling downward dog, which we also did a bit in last week's class. The sometimes called the quarter dog or the kneeling dog, or even an elbow cat would work. So I'll show you. You might want to watch first before you do it. Again, might be easier for you rather than trying to watch the screen and me at the same time. So a simple one would be to just go into like an elbow cat. Basically sticking my bum in the air, so my lungs are lower than my pelvic floor. My belly is slightly above my diaphragm. And then some deep breathing here. So breathing out fully breathing in fully. And again, when you're doing this, you're just noticing what's happening with your breathing and with your muscles, maybe an awareness of your diaphragm. And slightly more inverted would be to rest your forehead down on your forearm like this and your arm forward. So that's the quarter dog or kneeling dog. Or of course the full downward dog, this one. And actually the effect is very similar. So there's no advantage to doing downward dog in terms of exploring the breath in this way. Of course, if you fancy a bit of a bigger leg stretch again and strengthening of your shoulders, your arms and your wrists, and that's a little bit stronger than this or this. And choosing one of the three, or perhaps having a little go at each one. And you can rest in between, coming to kneeling or child's pose. And all the while being aware of your breath and how it feels upside down. So when the effect of gravity is changed on our body, when we're upside down, the breath feels quite different. The diaphragm is kind of upside down. The effect of gravity is upside down on the diaphragm. So it can be very releasing for the diaphragm. Might be able to go through a bigger range of movement than it normally does, particularly on the exhale into the chest. And that can feel quite relaxing. It's like an assisted sigh. And you might like to try out sighing in that inverted pose. Breathing out fully. Even our diaphragm can hold some tension. A way of letting that go. Inverted pose. And then when you've had a bit of an experiment and explore with those poses, do take a rest now in maybe child's pose or sitting and releasing your wrists. And then taking a moment to prepare for your relaxation. It might be helpful to again take some extra cushions. It is a warm day today here, but you might cool down a bit. Taking time to make sure you'll be comfortable. So once settled, we can relax into the full support of whatever we're resting on. So the floor, the ground, or the sofa as our friend, our support. The deeper breathing we've been doing, and kind of exercising some of those breathing muscles might have given us some ideas as to how we can strengthen ourselves, how we can use the breath to create a bit of invigoration in the body. And we can also utilize awareness of breathing, changing the breath as a way to relax. So relaxing the belly again, and just letting the breath flow freely now, not breathing out more fully than normal, just letting the breath flow. Still encouraging the belly to be soft. That can be quite calming. And then we can add slowing down the out breath, so slightly slower out breath than usual, or than you would be doing right now. In breath the same, and then breathing out perhaps just 1 or 2 counts more slowly than your breath was. So you could count, you could breathe in for 2 or 3 counts and out for 3, 4 or 5, to get a sense of what's comfortable, and making sure your exhale is a little longer than the inhale. Or you can do it more intuitively. The main thing is to do it in an easeful way. So your body is ready for the next in-breath. Not trying to hold the breath out for too long or anything like that. Just slowing it down a little. This can very quickly relax us, stimulate the rest and digest response in the body. And you might get a little sleepy, and that's okay. And then staying attentive to how your body is. Letting go of changing the breath So letting your breath find its own rhythm, staying attentive to your body, how you are as your body, as a human body, human being in a body. And then I'd like you to bring someone to mind. It could be an animal, it could be a person that you really like, someone you love or really like, that you have an uncomplicated relationship with. So perhaps a straightforward friendship that's going well, a family relationship that's easy, that always brings you joy, or pretty much always brings you joy, or right now in your life brings you joy. It could be the plants in your garden. It doesn't have to be a breathing being. It might be a lovely tree in your local park. So bearing in mind, when we're doing this, it's lockdown. It has complicated some of our relationships. So choose something that's going to give you access to easy appreciation. And bringing this person or being or part of nature to mind. You might like to visualize them or it. Perhaps bring to mind a joyful memory relating to them or it. If it's a human being, you might imagine them being joyful, happy, smiling. And noticing what you can feel in your body as you imagine this being. Become aware of your positive, joyful, appreciative relationship with them or it. And you might do something with your body as you're focusing on this. You might be very gently smiling. Your breathing might be different. We're doing this in response to what we're bringing to mind. And we might be doing it quite unconsciously, and it might be hard to notice anything, and that's okay. These are things that often we kind of think just happen to us. But actually, they're things that we're doing as a result of focusing on something positive, something that brings us joy. So awareness of that can be very empowering. What do we bring our mind to? What do we choose to notice? Do we choose to remember? So if you're noticing some pleasant things in your body, and noticing myself smiling, you could enhance them a little bit more. Maybe there's a desire to kind of take a deeper breath and breathe out. Kind of breathe a little sigh of enjoyment. And relaxing into these feelings and these sensations, if you can. This practice is kind of a bit of a loving kindness practice. It might be the first stage of a loving kindness practice, where we link our mind to the easy feeling of friendliness or kind of warmth, emotional warmth. We can feel when we're with, or when we think about, or when we visualize something or someone pleasant, something or someone we enjoy, so that we can notice what this kind of friendliness, this inherent friendliness feels like inside us. And we start with something or someone easy. And then we can conclude that little practice by wishing that being, animal, plant, tree, person, wishing them well. May you be well. May you be happy. May you thrive. And any other wish that you might have right now for this person or being, part of nature that you brought to mind. Noticing how you are. Perhaps you feel a little different from the start of class. And if you do, it can be perhaps be evidence of having some power over how you are, by building awareness, by having some tools in your toolkit to change how you are. Maybe it's a very small change. Maybe you feel 1% restored or 2% calmer. Nonetheless, that would be an improvement. So always noting improvement, noting the positive effects of your practice, because that will embed it even more in your nervous system, that you have something you can do. However tough life might be at any given time, you have something you can do to help yourself to feel 1% better. And gradually bringing your attention to the space around you. If you have time to rest longer and that's what you need right now, then of course do that. If you feel ready to start communicating with the world again, or being active, and start to move your eyes around the room, noticing sounds, gradually interacting with everything around you again.